तो
मैं आई गेस एग्जाम भी होना है।
सर
आई डोंट नो
एक दिन का
ये
गैप दे दीजिए सर, 7 को गैप दे दीजिए।
क्यों, ऐसा क्या है अभी था 7 days तो है अभी आपके पास।
ये सर तो फिर नहीं, क्योंकि 6
सर
को
6
जियो
तारीख को
को
सरस्वती पूजा हो जा रहा है और 6
सर
तारीख को
इसीलिए ना
टेस्ट भी है हम लोग का।
6 को सरस्वती पूजा है। ओके ओके सो
टेस्ट भी है सर शाम में।
let's take the class test on 8. Okay, 8. So
ओके।
what will be the timing? I think we have a slot from 4 to 5. Okay, or some other time you would like to take the test.
सर
But
ठीक है सर।
what are your views? Morning time is good or evening time? What? नमस्कार सर, गुड मॉर्निंग। बताएं सर कैसे। हाँ सर, पहुंच गए थे आराम से। नहीं सर नहीं, टाइम से और टाइम। अच्छा, 2 बजे। ओके, अच्छा। हाँ 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 सर, देखते हैं हालांकि थोड़ा यहाँ है तो अभी गेस्ट के बीच में है तो टाइम निकाल पाएंगे तो जुड़ जाएंगे। आप लिंक एक और शेयर कर दीजिएगा। हाँ हाँ सर सर, हाँ ठीक है सर। हाँ अच्छा, हाँ, ठीक सर, ओके। So evening time 4 to 5 is fine, huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Great. So I will send the information on the WhatsApp group regarding all these. Okay.
Sir, chapter.
Chapter up to today's class DNS. We will see DNS. So that is actually up. Unit 2 will be finished when we will discuss DNS. Okay. I'm not going to discuss two topics actually, uh, because we do not have sufficient time to. I will not get sufficient time to complete the syllabus, so I will skip some of the topics like FDP. I will not teach, and sorry, FTP protocol and SMTP. I have put the videos of both the uh, protocols on my YouTube channel that are available. Okay, so I'm going to actually skip both of the topics. Okay, so आपको वो topics अपने आप पढ़ना पड़ेंगे. If you face any issue or doubt, you can call me. Okay, or we can discuss some on some other day. Okay, so now I think we should start.
सर एग्जाम में वो टॉपिक आ सकता है सर?
Maybe. This is the drawback of our online classes, because in online classes we only allowed to take 2 classes per week, and if we take offline classes, the number was 4 classes.
यस
Okay,
सर।
so it is your loss for some point of some time. This is actually your loss of 2 classes, and this is done because of that if we took all the 4 classes online, then you can imagine you will spend around 4 hours per day on online, है ना, on your mobile or laptop. Initially, first time when lockdown happened, we used this practice. Then we also understand. We actually did not decided that. Our university decided that all the classes will be taken in online mode. But after 1 or 2 days, it was realized that students were having a lot of problems and issues, because many times some students were from remote areas and they were in their villages, and in villages the internet is a very difficult thing, and many times people faced disconnections, all that. Okay, and also it was difficult to attend 4 hour a day on the classes on internet or mobile or laptop using internet. So later the university modified the timetable actually. Initially, actually, that we were also having was the view that we should not take classes of online classes more than 2 hours, you know, because you many times whatever data pack you are also having, they have also not be able to afford this. Keeping all these things in mind, it was decided that only fix themselves. Okay, this was the idea. Per week we need to assign 2 topics, so that means we will just cover half of the syllabus. That was the idea, and half of the syllabus will be covered by student. But I'm not agree with that, so that's why I do not skip most of the topics. I try to cover most of the topics, and but it is not possible to cover whole syllabus in online mode because the number of classes have reduced to half. So that's why I'm taking the help of previous videos. Hmm? So that's why I only skipped only 2 topics up to, and that's not an issue if suppose that then if time will be there, then I will cover those topics again. Hmm? No issue, don't worry about that. So now we can I think we should start. Hmm? Okay, so
सर
tell.
सर यूनिट 1 और 2 दोनों से आने वाले हैं ना एग्जाम में क्वेश्चन?
Yes, we will cover up the syllabus, complete syllabus till date. Okay, so question paper will not be very too much hard. That will be easy, and we'll cover the topics that I have taught. Hmm? But you have to prepare yourself accordingly. Class test is very important because you know that most of the people, it may be the case that they not have faced continuous evaluation system. So in order to understand the continuous evaluation system, it is the idea of continuous evaluation is that you have to be uh, we will actually uh, evaluate you throughout the semester. That is the philosophy of continuous evaluation. So during the semester, whatever activity, evaluation activity we are doing, each is important. And the continuous evaluation have 30 marks for internal evaluation and 70 for end semester examination. So end semester examination will be a kind of examination that you usually faced. You are used to the of that kind of examination. But for some people, the continuous evaluation may be a new kind of thing. And okay, so I would like to suggest you that please take seriously all the class tests. Hmm? Because many times continuous evaluation gives you a good opportunity to score. Okay, and it is sufficiently easy to get 80% or 90% marks in continuous evaluation. And semester becomes difficult because it covers the whole syllabus. In continuous evaluation, what happens, you are given chunks or piece of the syllabus that will be asked. Okay, so for the example, in class test 2, first class test only we will I will cover the topics from the first and second unit, and in next class test I will not ask the questions from the topics that I have covered in class test 1. So you will have a part of the syllabus for each of the class test. Okay, so that's why it will be easy to score in class tests. So that's why you should prepare yourself very well so that you can get good marks in class test. Okay, now let's continue. Okay, so in last class we have discussed uh, the concept of cookies in http protocol. Okay, so we know that http protocol is a stateless protocol, and in order to make it stateful, some extension was added especially the request line and the header lines in request and response header was added regarding cookies. Okay, so that server and client can exchange information related to cookies, and then they can establish cookies in order to make your HTTP stateful. Okay, now cookie was one extension. We have discussed that. Now the next extension with but is webcast. What is a webcast? So that you have created a, so this is your as origin server. Okay, why it is called origin server? We will talk about service after a while. So let's assume that this is a server that you have created. Now suppose that your service becomes very much popular. You come up with a new kind of service and implement it on server and make it public on internet, and after some months your service becomes very much popular and you have lot of customers worldwide. Okay, now when number of customers arises, it may be the case that your customers may face large response time, or many times your server is not available to them. Okay, so that means your server is facing a lot of availability issues, and your customers are also having large response time. Response time means a customer sends a request, then what amount of time your server takes to fulfill that request. This time is called response time. Okay, so many times what happens usually when number of customers increases on server, so they increase the load on the server actually, and you know that server are the servers doesn't have server does not a server does not have infinite amount of resources. It have finite amount of resources. Okay, but when number of customers increases, your server's resources may prove insufficient, and your server may be facing different kind of issues, and your customer satisfaction may go down. Okay, so this is not a very good thing for any kind of company or organization. They cannot afford customer unsatisfaction. If customer is not happy with you, then your business will not be running properly, and you may lose your customers, and ultimately your business suffer losses. Okay, so why it happens in client server scenario? Because in client server scenario, you know that only there is one entity that is having all the resources, that is server. Server is very important, and if server goes down, everything goes down. Your server is not scalable. So this problem is a very important problem, and it may enter into your losses. So it has been realized that something need to be done to solve this problem. So the idea of cache server is used to solve this problem. Now question arises, what is a cache server? So cache server is actually a replica server, or you can say that it is a kind of server that behave as a local server, or you can say that it is a kind of local copy. Okay, now suppose that your server is servicing worldwide. Let's say you have deployed your server in India, and but you are giving the services using the same server which is located in India to United States, Europe, Russia, and other countries. Okay, European countries हैं आपके, so you are covering all the area of the earth using a single server that is located in India. Okay, now when number of customers increases, your clients may start facing issues. Now your customers in India may not be facing very much issues in comparison to the issues that are faced by the customers that are located on other part of world, like that, in United States or America, sorry, United States or Australia or Europe, in any European country, or China, Japan, something like that. Why they may not, Indians may not be facing such issues? Because will take will travel a lot, है ना? So obviously it is traveling a long distance path. So this will take more time. So RTT very high here. The RTT for this packet will be high in comparison to the RTT that is arising from machine T1, and this is RTT2. So obviously RTT2 will be higher than RTT1. So obviously your customers in India will have less response time in comparison to the response time that is felt by the customer here. Okay, so this is actually a problematic issue. And दूसरी problem ये भी है कि your server is not able to, single server is not able to handle all the customers. So in order to solve this problem, what we can do, we can deploy some more servers. We call them proxy servers or cache servers. They are not completely similar to origin server. They are just a kind of cache. Have you heard about the concept of cache memory?
Yes, sir.
So this is the similar to the concept of cache memory. So what we will do here now, suppose this is United States, and you just deploy a server here. You just deploy a cache server here. We call it wave cache. So I'm writing here wave cache. So now what will happen? Let's say this is this is United States, and now you have deployed a cache server here. Okay. Now, whenever a client initiate a request for your service from United States, your service will be reached to this server, and this server will fulfill this request locally. So now what will happen? Here RTT will also become smaller. And पहला advantage तो हो गया कि US के जो clients हैं, they will see less RTT. They will, for their service, जो उनकी जो भी request है उनको कम time लगेगा because RTT have been reduced. दूसरा, now all the requests will be from that are arising from United States will be served by this cache server, local server. Okay, this cache server, and a very small amount of request may reach to this server. Okay, so what will happen now? You can reduce burden on your main server. That is generally we call it origin server. So now what is you are going to do here? You can deploy many such serve wave cache server in the different part of world. Okay, so now you will have a single server that is your main server, जिसे हम अब origin server बोलेंगे. We call it origin server, and then you will have multiple cache servers. So let's say I'm just writing C1 for cache server 1. Then in another part of world, you will also have a different server that is C2, that is another wave cache based cache server. Or so that means you will there will be one main server, and you will deploy multiple cache server. So let's say this is C3, this is C4, and C5. And these cache servers will serve different geographical region. Okay, so ऐसा करने से क्या फायदा होगा कि अब आपके जो कस्टमर्स हैं दे यू कैन सर्व देम लोकली. Okay, now it is important to understand that these cache servers are not exact replica of origin server. They are just cache server and they works on the concept of cache memory. What is the concept of cache memory? The concept of cache memory is that you might have you may be knowing this, that you have your CPU, here you have a cache memory and you have main memory. Okay, so whenever CPU wants something, it first contacts the cache memory. Okay, now why we require that CPU should contact cache memory? Because your cache memory is a associative memory which runs more faster than RAM memory. And you know that CPU runs almost 1,000 or 10 हायर स्पीड ऑफ रैम मेमोरी. तो इनके बीच में जो डिफरेंस है स्पीड का वो थाउजेंड्स में होता है, 1000 टाइम होता है. दैट मींस सीपीयू इज जनरली 1000 और मोर देन 1000 टाइम स्पीडियर देन रैम मेमोरी. so there is a speed mismatch. फर्स्ट मेमोरी सीपीयू बहुत तेजी से काम करता है और मेन मेमोरी कंपैरेटिवली वेरी स्लो है सीपीयू पे. so what we do, we put a very fast memory that is वो सीपीयू की स्पीड तो मैच नहीं करता है. हालांकि सीपीयू अब 1000 की जगह पर सीपीयू इससे कैश मेमोरी से मे बी 100 टाइम्स स्पीडियर होगा, ज्यादा स्पीड का होगा. सो नाउ 1000 से टाइम से बेटर है 100 टाइम की स्पीड मैच. सो कैश मेमोरी इज वर्किंग एट हायर स्पीड इन कंपेरिजन टू रैम मेमोरी. फर्स्ट थिंग. नाउ इसका फायदा क्या होगा? सो मेनी टाइम whenever CPU wants something, it will not contact directly RAM memory, it will contact cache memory. Okay, now if the content is not available with cache memory, only then your request will be forwarded to RAM memory. Okay, so CPU wants some file, let's say so some file, let's say f1, and this file f1 is available here. CPU will take the file from here and we call it hit. It means whatever CPU requested is received from cache memory. But if suppose this file is not available in cache memory, then we call it miss, and then CPU have to go to main memory. Okay, so we call it miss. Now ध्यान ये भी याद रखना है, cache memory is very small in size in comparison to main memory. So you cannot keep all the contents of main memory here. And cache memory हम RAM के साइज के बराबर भी नहीं लगा सकते because it is costly, very costly in comparison to main memory. So what we will do, we will have a small amount of cache where we will we will put content very carefully. कैश मेमोरी में हम वही कंटेंट ज्यादा रखेंगे जिनकी ज्यादा सीपीयू को जरूरत पड़ती है. सो मेनी टाइम्स सपोज यू हैव 100 फाइल्स, बट many times it will be the case that many time or most frequently CPU will request for, let's say 30 or 40 files out of those hundreds. जो 100 फाइल्स है वो ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है, सीपीयू मेनी टाइम्स उनको ज्यादा मांगेगा. सो द मोस्ट फ्रीक्वेंटली सॉर्ट कंटेंट जो है वी विल कीप देम इन कैश and less frequently requested contents will be in main memory. So now since we are putting the contents that will be very frequently required by cache by your CPU, we are keeping those contents here and remaining contents are there. Okay, so generally आपने ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम में पढ़ा होगा लोकेलिटी ऑफ रेफरेंस, और अभी नहीं पढ़ा है then you will go through this idea, locality of reference. So the concept of locality reference is said that कि recently CPU ने जो request किया है, many time it is high probability that CPU will request that content again. So recent past में let's say within 10 minutes or within 5 minutes CPU ने जो content request किया है, CPU will again ask for that content. ये high chances है. Okay, so we generally try to keep those contents that have been requested by CPU recently. Okay, so we are following the principle of locality of reference. Using this principle, what we can say that we can improve hit ratio to up to more than 70%. That means 70% of time, whatever CPU is looking for will be available from here. That means 70% time we will got hit. On 30% time we will get miss. So obviously 70% टाइम आपकी रिक्वेस्ट हायर मेमोरी द्वारा सर्व हो रही है, 30% टाइम लो स्पीड की मेमोरी से हो रहा है. सो ऑन एवरेज यू विल गेट ए स्पीड बेनिफिट ऑन एवरेज. ठीक है, क्योंकि 70% टाइम आपको जो कंटेंट है आपके हाई स्पीड मेमोरी से मिल जा रहे हैं, एंड ओनली 30% टाइम रफली यू आर रिक्वेस्टिंग कंटेंट फ्रॉम हियर. ओके, सो ऑन एवरेज जो स्पीड में इंप्रूवमेंट है दैट विल बी क्वाइट सिग्निफिकेंट. However, hit ratio may go more higher also. It is not always 70-30%. It may be higher as well. It depends on the time or the kind of contents that have been cached, or that are the content, depending on the set of contents available at particular time. Okay, so hit ratio ज़्यादा होगा तो CPU को speed benefit ज़्यादा मिलेगा, hit ratio कम होगा तो benefit कम मिलेगा. That is the idea of cache memory. So same concept, cache server just keep the record of the previously requested contents by your clients. So that means recently requested जो contents हैं या जो their copies will be kept by these cache servers. Okay, so each cache content will then customer will send a request. If the content is available with cache server, it will be delivered from there. Otherwise, the request is served using or taking the help of your origin server. So now let's come back to our discussion from the cache memory. So now suppose that there is a client that requests some content from your origin server. Okay, now it is important to understand that all these cache servers are transparent from clients. That means client doesn't know whether they are interacting with the cache server or origin server. Clients are not aware about. They are getting a feeling that they are requesting with origin server. They are seeing that there is only one server. ठीक है, इन सब चीजों से client aware नहीं होता है. Client is not interested about, and also it is not required to know the client all these things के ये cache server से request आ रही है, कहाँ से आ रही है. Okay, so whenever client wants something, it will forward the request to the cache server near about it. Now ये request कैसे cache server के पास जाएगी, we will talk about this in DNS. Okay, so DNS में with the help of DNS we can do redirection. सर्विसेज का हम रिडायरेक्शन, सॉरी जो रिक्वेस्ट हैं we can redirect those request as per our need and choice. Okay, so for the time being, assume that this client sends a request. Now client assumes that I am sending a request to main server, but your requested is redirected to local cache server. So for example, suppose that this is the server, and in this region there is a machine that is client that is sending a request. So now this request, usually this request should go to this server, that is your origin server. But in now when we deployed a cache or proxy, what will be done? This request will be forwarded to this cache server. Now if the cache server is able to process this server, that means whatever data or file or object is requested by this request, if that data is available with this cache server, then this cache server will return the data. कैसे return करेगा? It will just create a HTTP response packet and then put the content there and send the request response. So this machine or the browser here running here will get the response and will display that response to the user. Similarly, suppose that in this area there is a client that initiates a request. So this request will reach to this server, and if this server having the requested content, it will send the response immediately or directly to the client. Now client request need not to go to this origin server in this case. Okay, now as I told you that this will happen only when there is a hit. Hit means the content is available with the cache server. So cache server will only serve the request only when it have the content. But suppose that if that content is not available with this cache server, then what it will do, it will just create a request packet. Okay, client have requested, let's say, file 1 that is not available with this server. So it will create again a HTTP request to the origin server. Okay, so whenever cache server doesn't have anything request that is requested by the client, it will make a request packet for that object to the origin server. So ये जो web cache है C3 will send a request for the object F1 to origin server, and then origin server will deliver that content to cache server, and cache server will forward this content to client. Okay, and then also what it will do, it will create a copy of F1 hits itself. ठीक है, अगर आगे से now again suppose that the same customer or another customer makes request for F1, it will deliver that content directly. And so you can now imagine what are the advantages of doing this. First advantage is that you are able to remove the burden on from origin server पे आपने burden कम कर, so your solution becomes or your service becomes scalable. अब आपके number of customers बढ़ जाएंगे तो भी आपके solution आपके server पर बहुत ज्यादा load नहीं आएगा. Okay, that is one thing. Scalability have been improved. Second, you can improve the response time because you are able to serve your customer locally, so you can improve response time. Now तीसरा फायदा आप दे रहे हो इंटरनेट को, because now you are able to serve the client's request locally. So जो request है, they do not need to travel on more many of the links. कई सारी links पर उनको एक जगह जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. So आपकी जो bottleneck की problem है, that has been resolved, और आपके ये जो पैकेट है अब यहीं पर locally सर्व हो जा रहा है. So you are actually not वेस्टिंग एनी काइंड ऑफ इंटरनेट बैंडविड्थ. जो आपका ग्लोबल नेटवर्क है इंटरनेट, उसकी बैंडविड्थ को आप वेस्ट नहीं कर रहे हैं. इमेजिन करिए अगर आपकी रिक्वेस्ट इंडिया से, आपका वेब सर्वर इंडिया में यूएस से रिक्वेस्ट आ रही है, तो इट विल ट्रेवल through many links from US and it will come back to India. It will come to India and then from India response will go back to the server in US. So आप देखेंगे पैकेट्स को कितनी लिंक्स से ट्रेवल करना पड़ेगा. दैट मीन्स जब पैकेट लिंक से ट्रेवल करेगा तो ऑब्वियसली यू आर कंज्यूमिंग द बैंडविड्थ ऑफ योर इंटरनेट. Okay, but now you are able to if you deploy cache in United States itself, so packet will not leave United States. So कुछ ही links को वो travel करेगा. So unnecessarily overall अगर आप देखें, so you will be able to reduce the bandwidth usage of internet itself. And if you are implementing all these servers within a LAN also, this concept can also be applied in case of LAN also. So LAN की भी आप bandwidth को improve कर सकते हैं, or this can be applicable for any kind of network. Okay, so overall you can improve the bandwidth utilization also. This improve bandwidth utilization of internet. Okay, so these are the some of the advantages. एक और advantage है कि this solution is cost effective because अगर आप इसी सर्वर की कैपेसिटी इनहांस करेंगे, then you may be required to deploy सुपर कंप्यूटर. और आपको मालूम है कि ज्यादा पावरफुल मशीन की कॉस्ट लीनियरली नहीं बढ़ती है. द कॉस्ट इंक्रीजेज नॉन लीनियरली. आप कम पावरफुल मशीन लेंगे तो आपको चीपर पड़ेगी, लेकिन ज्यादा पावरफुल लेना है तो वो उसकी कॉस्ट बहुत ज्यादा हो जाती है. ओके, सो रादर देन डिप्लॉइंग ए वेरी वेरी पावरफुल सर्वर हियर, you can employ less powerful server, multiple cache servers, so your cost will become down. So your total investing cost है, that will also come down. Okay, so these are the advantages of your that deploying cache. So we call them web cache, cache server और proxy. Multiple terms हम इस्तेमाल करते हैं इनके लिए. Okay, but concept is same. Now there is one issue or problem that may be there, जिसका भी समाधान निकालने की जरूरत है. वो समाधान, वो प्रॉब्लम क्या है? It may be the case that suppose that this file f1 has been cached by this cache server. Now it may be the case that this file f1 have been updated on origin server after doing caching. C1 ने f1 जो C3 है, C3 have suppose that cached this file f1, but after some time, that means after the time f1 is cached by C3, it may be the case that this original file, that means original copy of this f1 file has been changed at the origin server. Now you know that this change will not be reflected here, है ना? So that means there are now two contents, two copies of f1 file. This is a copy which is not which is not a legal copy, you can say, because the original file have been okay. So now it is जो फाइल में f1 में जो चेंजेस हुए वो यहाँ भी हो जाना चाहिए. Otherwise you are serving a stale copy or stale resource to your client. That will also not be very good for your server, है ना? So that means both copies should be synchronized. So whatever cache you have contained should be updated. This problem need to be resolved. So what is the idea to solve this problem? The idea to solve this problem is that suppose that periodically this cache server need to ask your origin server whether this file has been changed or not. Okay, so now you will associate a tag or a value with this file, the time of modification. Each file or each object will contain a attribute that will indicate what time this object was modified last time. Okay, so now whenever this object is requested by a client, it will send a request to your origin server whether after this date the content of the file f1 has been changed or not. अगर f1 के content change हो गए, now get the copy from here and start delivering the new copy of to your client whenever client sends a request. Now there is a issue here. क्या आप हर बार इस फाइल को बार बार चेक करेंगे? जब भी क्लाइंट से रिक्वेस्ट आ रही है, हर रिक्वेस्ट पर आप ओरिजिन सर्वर पर जाकर चेक करेंगे कि ये फाइल में कंटेंट में चेंज तो नहीं हो गया है? दैट इज वन थिंग, वन क्वेश्चन दैट यू नीड टू आंसर. सेकंड, क्या हम इसे पीरियोडिकली करें? क्योंकि हर क्लाइंट की रिक्वेस्ट के लिए हम बार बार चेक करेंगे, या तो फिर फायदा क्या होगा कैश सर्वर का? बिकॉज नाउ एवरी टाइम वी आर ऑलवेज कॉन्टेक्टिंग और ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ द कस्टमर्स रिक्वेस्ट टू द origin server. So हर कैश सर्वर बार बार इससे origin server से रिक्वेस्ट करेगा. So that means again जो बेनिफिट था कैश सर्वर डिप्लॉय करने का, that will go in drain. So that there is we cannot do that. So what is the solution? So solution is that we can do it periodically. So what we will do, because many time the contents usually doesn't change, है ना, very frequently change नहीं होते. So now you have to decide after what time the content need to be refreshed. So on the basis of the nature of your service or the kind of origin server that you are implementing here, so depending on the servers you have to decide a time जिस पर आपके कैश के कंटेंट को आपको डिलीट कर देना है और नए कंटेंट को ले आना है. ओके, या पीरियडिकली आपको you just need to make provisions that these cache servers should request about the contents whether they have been modified or not on a periodic fashion. So वो period क्या होगा, that need to be configured by the server administrator. So यहाँ पर server administrator का role आएगा. He should decide what should be the refresh time for each of the content. Okay, so this will help you to solve this issue. So जरूरी नहीं है कि आप हर रिक्वेस्ट पर पूछें. हर रिक्वेस्ट पर आप सर्वर से पूछेंगे तो कोई फायदा नहीं है. दैट मीन्स आपका जो बेनिफिट था वो चला जाएगा. तो जनरली कैश सर्वर क्या करते हैं, पीरियोडिकली करते हैं. So that means every time cache server creates a copy of a file or any object locally, then it attached a time clock, or you can say the time to live field, TTL बोलते हैं हम उसको, time to live. So time to live means इतने टाइम बाद इस कंटेंट को डिस्कार्ड करके ओरिजिन सर्वर से दूसरी कॉपी उसकी इशू करा लेनी है, या इतने टाइम बाद ओरिजिन सर्वर से पूछ लेना है कि कहीं ये कंटेंट चेंज तो नहीं हुआ है, अगर चेंज हुआ है तो गिव मी द फ्रेश कॉपी. ओके, हाउएवर यहाँ पे स्टिल रिस्क है, यू मे गिव सम टाइम स्केल कॉपी, क्योंकि आप एक पीरियड के बाद जो है अपडेट कर रहे हैं अपनी कॉपी को. ओके, सो इफ जो योर सो यहाँ पर ये देखना है कैन योर सर्विस सस्टेन while you are delivering some stale content to your client. So it will depend on how critical your service is. अगर आपकी सर्विस में इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि हमें कंटेंट कस्टमर को एकदम रीसेंट तो इनको इस टाइम को interval change at any object, it will inform each of the cache server in the file. They will remove this original file while we deploy or work with web customers. A whole book can be written on this issue, and lot of protocols are there to address these problems. Okay, so this is not a very easy problem. Whenever we will to go into the detail, we have to we will open a Pandora box, और इसके लिए बहुत सारे issues हैं, बहुत सारे protocols हैं. So cache management is not a very simple issue, it is a very critical issue. Okay, but still we have very good protocols to handle this problem. Okay, a lot of protocols are there. memcache नाम से एक प्रोटोकॉल है, आपने देखा होगा, जो फेसबुक यूज करती है इसी टाइप की प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व करने के लिए. सो लॉट ऑफ प्रोटोकॉल्स आर देयर, बट दिस इज दीज प्रोटोकॉल्स आर आउट ऑफ स्कोप ऑफ अवर दिस सब्जेक्ट, सो आई विल नॉट गो इनटू द डिटेल. आई हैव जस्ट पॉइंटेड आउट what are the problems are there and what are the potential solutions of these problems. Okay, so this is the concept of cache server. So obviously इनके pros and cons हैं, but जो by seeing the benefit, you can see that it gives lot of benefit to us. So many time it is the case that many web services or the servers deploy proxy servers or cache servers. Okay, so it is a very good, very important idea, and people that offer their services using client server architecture uses cache servers frequently. Okay, and many time actually DNS के केस में भी इस कॉन्सेप्ट को इस्तेमाल किया जाता है. We will see that when we will talk about DNS, and even many ISPs also जो इंटरनेट या डेटा सर्विसेज को डिलीवर करने के लिए they also uses this concept of cache servers. So it is a very popular concept. Okay, any question?
No, sir.
No. Okay.
Size of the cache server.
So now there is one point that I want to discuss, is that there is one extension to support this caching or cache servers. So HTTP have one HTTP has added one header, request header and response header in both of the packets. So this is the if modified sense. जैसे मैंने बताया ना कि if content has been modified, so servers web cache should have a capability to ask the origin server क्या ये content modify तो नहीं हुआ है. So whenever suppose that एक time is going to expire and a request have come, एक server एक जो है let's say there was file f1 that was cached by a web server, let's say c3, हम c3 की बात करते हैं. c3 ने एक फाइल f1 को अपने पास कैश करके रखी हुई है, बट इट मे बी द केस जो TTL है फाइल का, जो सर्वर ने सेट किया था वेब कैश सर्वर ने, लेट्स से दैट वाज 2 मिनट्स एंड दैट हैव बीन एक्सपायर्ड. सो जैसा ही वो टाइम एक्सपायर होगा और सपोज दैट उसी टाइम पर एक रिक्वेस्ट आ जाती है, या नहीं भी आती तब भी सर्वर विल सेंड ए रिक्वेस्ट मैसेज एंड उस रिक्वेस्ट मैसेज में ऑब्जेक्ट को भी वो रेफर करेगा एंड इट विल आस्क इफ मॉडिफाइड सिंस और डेट बताएगा, क्योंकि सर्वर के पास जो कॉपी है सो वेब सर्वर के पास कॉपी F1 की एक कॉपी है एंड लेट्स से दिस कॉपी वाज मॉडिफाइड ऑन लेट्स से 26 January 22. Okay, so now what client webcache will ask to the origin server, it will say that कि आप मुझे बताइए कि F1 फाइल इस डेट के बाद इट विल पुट दिस डेट इन दिस फील्ड। ठीक है, जो रिक्वेस्ट मैसेज बनेगा उसमें ये कंटेंट लिखा होगा इफ मॉडिफाइड सिंस, और यहाँ पर ये डेट एंड टाइम लिखा होगा जब ये फाइल मॉडिफाई हुई थी ओरिजिनली। सो दिस ये टाइम किसने बताया था? ओरिजिन सर्वर ने बताया होगा जब ये कंटेंट कॉपी किया गया था तब। ओके, वो साथ में आता है जब ऑब्जेक्ट डिलीवर होता है, तब वो टाइम साथ में इसके एट्रीब्यूट के तौर पर रिस्पॉन्स मैसेज में आता है। सो क्लाइंट ने उसे कॉपी कर रखा है वेव कैश ने, कैश सर्वर ने। So now cache server have this information that this file was modified on this day, let's say 4:30 PM पे modify हुई थी, और now let's say today is 30 so it is a parameter सर्वर के साथ configurable होगा। You have to configure a large duration. So let's say 4 दिन बाद 31 जनवरी है, so it will give this header and एक ये आइडेंटिफाई, अगर ये कंटेंट मॉडिफाई हुआ है इसके बाद तो इट विल पुट इफ मॉडिफाइड सिंस इन द रिक्वेस्ट हेडर एंड उसमें ये डेट देगा एंड एक सिंपली रेस्पॉन्स देगा see that available in the request that is sent by your cache server, and once server will receive this packet and it will see the date, एंड सर्वर के पास जो F1 की कॉपी है वो उसमें डेट मैच कराएगा, और सपोज दैट ये फाइल 26 की जगह पर 28 को मॉडिफाई हो गई 28 जनवरी को, then it is the case that server will understand that the client webcache see who is sending this request have or stale copy of the file 28 को मॉडिफाई हो गई मतलब 2 दिन बाद, so server will deliver this file to the cache server अगर मॉडिफाई हो गई है तो। इस केस में वी आर टेकिंग द एग्जांपल द फाइल हैज बीन मॉडिफाइड। इफ सपोज फाइल मॉडिफाई नहीं हुई है देन ये मैसेज देगा 304 नॉट मॉडिफाइड, और ऑब्जेक्ट नहीं भेजेगा, सिंपली एम्प्टी एक रिस्पॉन्स जाएगा, उसमें ये हेडर एडेड होगा 304 नॉट मॉडिफाइड। आपको मालूम है ये मैसेज कहाँ जाता है? आपके स्टेटस लाइन में 200 ओके था ना, उस जगह पर 304 नॉट मॉडिफाइड। सो इट विल इंडिकेट टू द कैश दैट दिस फाइल इज नॉट मॉडिफाइड आफ्टर दिस डेट। दैट मीन्स कैश सर्वर के पास ओरिजिनल कॉपी ही है, बट अगर फाइल मॉडिफाई हुई है तो सर्वर क्या करेगा? रिस्पॉन्ड करेगा डेटा के साथ में। डेटा मींस इट विल डिलीवर द कैश फाइल। सो अगर आपके पास जो मैसेज मिल रहा है उसमें फाइल नहीं है और ये हेडर है, इसका मतलब फाइल मॉडिफाई नहीं हुई है, सो कुछ नहीं करना है, केवल रिस्पॉन्स को सर्वर से जो मिला है उसे डिस्कार्ड कर देना है। बट इफ फाइल इज मॉडिफाइड सो सर्वर विल रिस्पॉन्ड विद द डेटा, दैट मीन्स न्यू कॉपी ऑफ द फाइल, और फिर सर्वर क्या करेगा? उस कॉपी को उस फाइल को कॉपी करके रख लेगा, पुरानी वाली कॉपी को डिस्कार्ड कर देगा, एंड जो टाइम है वो फाइल के साथ है ही है। सो दिस वे कैश सर्वर may update its cache. Okay. So now let's come to the next topic that we will discuss, that is DNS. Any question on cache server? No? Okay, so let's start with DNS. This is a very popular protocol, and it is very important protocol to implement a very important service. So DNS is a protocol related to service that is very important for functioning of internet. Domain name system, you might have heard about this, but let's talk about DNS, why DNS is important and why DNS is required. You may knowing that in www जो एप्लीकेशन था आपका उसमें ईच सर्वर host certain contents and those contents are requested by different clients, है ना? This is the server. It can be a web server or it can be another kind of server that implements some service, and these are the clients. Clients are requesting certain services. Now, generally, you know that when your packet is sent by network layer requires IP address. We will see that when your packet is routed means your request, suppose that is arriving from this, that is being initiated from this machine, this request packet need to be reached to this server, only then we can expect a response. जब तक आपकी रिक्वेस्ट सर्वर के पास नहीं पहुंचेगी, you cannot expect a response from the server. Okay, now you know that your server may be geographic region of the world. मान लीजिए आपका क्लाइंट इंडिया में, server India. So your request that is generated by a server. Okay, now आपकी रिक्वेस्ट मैसेज को message to your protocols. That means you will use services of routers and links in the core of the network, and they will decide what the path should be taken by your packet to reach a particular server. Okay, but now you need to also understand that the intermediate routers that are forwarding this message towards your server do not understand host name. For example, suppose that you are communicating with Google server or google.com. So that means आप Google के सर्वर से कांटेक्ट कर रहे हैं, and suppose that Google का सर्वर आपका इंडिया में नहीं है, so it is available in United States and you are sending a request from India. So your request जो आपको Google को भेजनी है, it should be forwarded to Google server. Now आपकी रिक्वेस्ट को गूगल के सर्वर तक पहुंचाने के लिए यू विल रिक्वायर सर्विसेज ऑफ मल्टीपल राउटर्स इन बिटवीन. आपके मशीन और गूगल के सर्वर के बीच में मल्टीपल राउटर्स होंगे. दे विल फॉरवर्ड योर पैकेट टू गूगल सर्वर. बट in order to forward your request, the routers that are involved in your packets forwarding should know the IP address of source and destination machines. Without knowing IP address, they cannot forward the packets. So what I'm trying to say here is that the components of the internet, that means the core elements of internet के or other machines that are involved in transferring your data, they require IP address. So IPv4 की बात करें तो आपका IP address 32 bit का होता है. So IP address is a binary pattern of 32 bits. Kind of इस तरीके का स्टफ 32 bit का एक बाइनरी सीक्वेंस है. Okay, so machines only recognizes IP addresses. जो इंटरनेट में जो मशीन्स हैं, दे आर डिप्लॉयड, जो कोर एलिमेंट्स हैं, दे ओनली रिकॉग्नाइज IP address. They do not recognize this kind of stuffs, google.com, youtube.com or facebook.com and so on. Now that is also the case that suppose अगर मान लीजिए ये चीजें नहीं हो तो then why these things are required. ये कहाँ से आ गए, google.com, youtube.com, what are those called? So इन्हें हम कई बार बोलते हैं कि domain name or something. So एक्चुअली अगर हम मान लीजिए मशीन्स को गूगल को हम गूगल के IP एड्रेस से रेफर करने लग जाए, सपोज दैट यू रिक्वायर टू कॉन्टेक्ट यू गूगल, बट इन ऑर्डर टू कॉन्टेक्ट गूगल थ्रू द इंटरनेट यू रिक्वायर IP एड्रेस. ओके, अब आप सपोज करिए व्हेन एवर यू वांट टू कॉन्टेक्ट टू गूगल, यू नीड टू गिव द IP एड्रेस ऑफ गूगल or any other service जो भी वेबसाइट है वर्ल्ड में, आपको अब उस वेबसाइट का नाम जो जनरली आप यूज करते हैं, नाम ना होते हुए अगर ऐसा होगा तो आपको हर वेबसाइट का आईपी एड्रेस मेंशन करना होगा, तभी आप अपनी रिक्वेस्ट मैसेज को वहां भेज पाएंगे. बट इट इज डिफिकल्ट फॉर ह्यूमंस टू रिमेंबर दीज नंबर्स, स्पेशली बाइनरी पैटर्न्स. अगर आपको google.com या youtube.com और facebook.com और twitter.com और cusb.ac.in, ये जो वेबसाइट्स हैं, इन सबके नाम ना यूज करते हुए आपको आईपी एड्रेस याद करना पड़ जाए, देन इट विल बी वेरी डिफिकल्ट फॉर यू टू रिमेंबर द आईपी एड्रेसेस. आप कुछ ही वेबसाइट्स को अप्रोच कर पाएंगे, बाकी को नहीं कर पाएंगे. सो व्हाट आई वांट टू कन्वे हियर इज दैट it is very difficult for human to remember IP addresses. Okay, so and machine do not understand anything other than IP address. So there is a problem. Machine को IP चाहिए and humans does not cannot remember IP. So a alternate solution was built. Humans will do. Human will use such kind of things जिन्हें हम generally mnemonic भी बोलते हैं. Mnemonics, because words remember या याद रख पाते हैं meaningful हो तो, they cannot remember this. But machines does not understand google.com kind of stuff. Mnemonic को understand नहीं करता. So we need to implement translation. इस mnemonic को like क्या करे, इस mnemonic google.com and DNS server or DNS service will transform this into IP address, so that now humans का भी काम बन गया. Humans will be comfortable, humans will be also happy, and machine will also happy. Okay, so humans will give this kind of names to contact the server. वो servers के आपने इस तरीके से नाम रख दिए, and now humans will use these kind of names to contact the server, and ultimately DNS service will be there that will translate these services so that machines will get the IP addresses. So and once the routers and intermediate switches or gateways, they will get IP address, they will be able to contact the machines. So DNS is a kind of सॉरी टाइम हो गया है ना, बस यहीं क्लोज करते हैं.
क्लास है सर. यस सर.
हाँ श्योर श्योर. So DNS is a kind of translation service that does this task. So in next class we will have a discussion on this. Okay, I will share a video that I have already recorded that is available in YouTube. So before attending the next class, you need to come by just going through with that video. Okay, so that my task will be easier actually. And DNS is very important protocol, and it is also a complex one.